Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast presented by First Federal Bank. It's Friday, August 5th. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. Chiefs training camp rolls on. On today's show, we hear from the newest addition, defensive end Carlos Dunlap. The 12-year pro spent most of his career with the Cincinnati Bengals and last year with the Seattle Seahawks. He played 38% of the snaps there. He wants more than that in Kansas City. On today's show, which started as a SportsBeat Live, beat writers Herbie, Teope, and Jesse Newell discuss Dunlap and his potential impact with the Chiefs. Let's get started. Herbie digging the music. Good afternoon and welcome to SportsBeat Live from Chiefs training camp in Missouri Western. I'm Blair Kirchhoff, your host. We're here with Jesse Newell, who continues to operate from the great outdoors, and Herbie Teope, who operates from the great indoors. So great to see you guys. I am actually not in St. Joe right now. I came back and had to get a haircut. That was the big thing. No. Got some traveling to do later today, and figured it was best to do this show from home. But good day at Chiefs training camp. It was a 10-10-10 day. Herbie, tell us what a 10-10-10 day is.
It's a fast practice. But when Andy Reid does this, you have 10 plays, either 10 plays or 10 minutes between the first team offense versus the second team defense, and then you switch it over to the second team offense versus the first team defense, and then that last 10 period is essentially your backups. But it's meant to be fast. Your offense should look good against the backups, and conversely, the same thing when your starting defense goes against the second team offense, they should look good as well, and that's essentially what we saw.
And we saw something else today too, and that was a new player for the Chiefs, Carlos Dunlap, with his first practice with the Chiefs. He was on the field yesterday, taking it in, but today he worked out. And Jesse, were there all eyes on number 8 in the white jersey today?
Yeah, there were, and that was Herbie's story for today. The news of the day was that Carlos Dunlap was here in Chiefs camp, and basically they're whole now. It's one of those situations where everybody was talking a lot about Orlando Brown a few weeks ago. What was going to be the resolution to his situation? Now that's resolved. He's in Chiefs camp. He's here. And now Carlos Dunlap. We all sort of wondered when Brett Veach talked in the offseason about how they needed to upgrade their pass rush, what they were going to do. And they started Carlos Dunlap. He's in here now. He's starting to practice. And so this team, you almost can say, until maybe some injuries pop up, but it's kind of settled at this moment. They kind of know what they have, know what they're going to be heading into week 1. And so now you wait for the rest of camp to see if there are injuries or surprises that happen throughout. But the people that needed to be here or that the Chiefs hoped to be here are now here, including this new addition, Carlos Dunlap. So he spoke to media today. And like I said, Herbie's got a great story up on the side about him and the great opportunity he believes he has with the Chiefs this year.
Hey, and Herbie, we're going to talk about Carlos Dunlap with you in just a moment, but let's hear from Carlos Dunlap first. This is a long clip, about 6 minutes worth. And I thought he was that interesting. I kept waiting to, looking for places to cut off after 3 or 4 minutes, but then the next question was good and the answer was good. So this is going to be a long stretch of the newest Chief, Carlos Dunlap.
Great opportunity with a great organization. What they've done the last few years, playing against them on the other side of the ball, I wanted to add what my specialties to it, and we felt like we had mutual interest.
Was it a difficult decision? Did you have several other teams that you had to decide from?
Yes, there were a couple other teams, and then obviously, these last week or so, ever since camp started, things heated up. But I liked what I heard from the Chiefs. That's why I came out here to meet with them in person, to see how I fit, see how they would use me, see how I would contribute, see if it was a fit, and I'm here.
Did any specific players recruit you at all?
No.
You know that you work out with Orlando Brown and also Chris Jones down in Miami. How much did they talk to you? How much did you ask them about Kansas City?
I didn't. Well, with the offers and stuff, they weren't down there at the same time. I think they were in OTAs when the first offer came, so I didn't really get that. But I had trained with them. We had worked out together, did all our stuff, normal individually. Not knowing that I was going to be a Chief. So when I got here today, he's like, we didn't even know this was going to be a real thing. Both of them pretty much said that. So it's kind of cool that we already got to know each other a little bit this offseason because we've been working together.
She signed a little bit later in free agency. What went into just that timetable for you?
Patience. This is my 13th year. I've done it 12 different ways. So I wanted to make sure I made an educated decision and went with the team, where, there was, mutual interest in, my ability to play and how I would be used and the opportunity to win. Because at this point, I've done a lot of football. One of the things I have not done is, I haven't got over 100 sacks. I haven't won a playoff game and I haven't clearly won a Super Bowl. So those are things that I would like to do at this point in my career, and I'm in hot pursuit, and I feel like this team gives me a great opportunity, the best opportunity to do it. So,
Speaking of sacks, you've been able to get at least 6 since 2011. What goes into that consistency of just being able to get to the quarterback and make your money?
My routine. So that's one of the big things that I'm trying to establish and figure out here. Today was the first day. So I contributed to my routine, my work ethic, my team that helps with my routine. So I got to find all the people here, delegate those tasks, and just get a routine and rhythm going.
Carlos, what did you like to hear most from either Andy Reid or Steve Spagnuolo when you were having those initial conversations and then when you were here before making the decision to sign?
The opportunity to play in every down. Obviously, we'll be rolling because we got a young bull, first-round pick who has a lot of talent. Sky's the limit for him. So the opportunity to play in every down, at this point in my career, because I've been a closer in so many games and have 96 sacks in my career, they try to correlate, with being older, taking down your snaps, but featuring you in passing situations. But I like to eat and wherever you put on the table, I like what's the word?
First down just as much as third.
Yeah, I could say it just like that. Yeah, first and second downs are just as important to me as third down. Obviously, I've done many things on third down, closed many games on third down, but I feel like if you impact the game early on first and second down, you can put the game away even sooner. And clearly, these guys have lit up the scoreboard 1,000,001 times. So look forward to contributing my strengths to what they already do well here.
You're 4 sacks away from 100. Do you have something special planned if you get that 4 sack?
No, because getting over 100 puts me, in the top, I think I need 103 to get in the top 50-something or 40-something. So I want to shrink that down to at least get to, maybe top 25, 32. So 100 is a big milestone that I will, enjoy and celebrate and be proud of. But 4 sacks on the year is not my goal. I try to average 8. He said 6 the last few years, but I try to average 8 a year. And I want to go for more than that, obviously. And I put my money where my mouth is with the deal we did, structured it that way for, the incentives to increase it.
I understand you just got here yesterday, and then today was your first time actually observing the practice from the sidelines. What are your impressions so far as you look at what Steve Spagnuolo's defensive scheme wants you to do and how you fit there?
That's a tough question. You should ask me in a couple of days because I'm still learning the defense. I was up to about midnight last night trying to catch up on the install. I believe they're, a few installs ahead of me. I got 2 or 3 of them in yesterday, but today will be the day that I'm going to get with Coach one-on-one and get through it. Obviously, it's camp, so there's a lot of things, moving parts going on. Haven't had opportunity yet to sit and just go through it with them. So we're going to do that. So, give me a little bit of time to answer that question. Coach Cullen, yeah.
Carlos, it sounded like those were late night meetings when you came up here. Can you just describe
Oh, yeah. That was another thing that showed the importance of, them wanting me to get here because it's obviously camp. I landed at, 10:30, got here at like 11:30, and the whole staff was here. They had all the things that I wanted to get answered question. Each one of them spent time with Coach Reid one-on-one, eating pizza. Then we went in there with Spags and Coach Cullen, watched some tape, basically showed me where I would be, the defense they run, how they call it, his rhythm, and I liked where I fit. So, that morning I signed, yeah. So clearly that night was worth it to them and worth it to me, and clearly them taking that initiative to do it in camp, knowing, it's early days. Like today I was woken up at 6 in the morning for a drug test, and, I didn't have to be up till 9. So, I know they have early mornings, so that was pretty dope for them to take that time to answer my questions and take that initiative to, get me here.
Okay, that was obviously a long clip, and thanks for staying with us through that. I hope that the next question was about the pizza and what kind it was and where it came from. I happen to know it wasn't not the case, though. But Herbie, a lot to unpack there, starting with the idea that a defensive lineman who played 38% of the defensive snaps last year in Seattle is jonesing for a little more than that this year, based on what he told us here.
Yeah, I found that fascinating as well, because in Seattle, they use him more as a situational kind of guy. And he kind of talked about that. The older you get, he just turned 33 in February. The older a player gets, they try to limit their snaps and then just put them in situations. We saw that in Kansas City with Tamba Hali. The older he got, Reed kind of pulled back on him. But he still believes he can be an impact player on first, second, and third down. The thing I like about him was he knew his milestones. He knew the benchmarks. He knew exactly how many sacks he had. And he points out, I've never won a playoff game. I've never had a realistic chance to win a Super Bowl. When you spend 11 and a half years in Cincinnati, I mean, he spent some dark times with the Bengals. Granted, they've turned the corner, but since entering the league in 2010, Cincinnati has some pretty bad teams. He just wants the shot. He's at the time of his career where he just wants a legit shot to win it all. And so why not the Chiefs?
Andy talked about the idea, or was it Spags who said something about playing inside, that there could be a possibility of him playing inside? I forgot which one I heard it from, but I don't, look, more power to him. If he performs, then he's going to stay on the field. He'll get someone's snaps if he the Chiefs are a sack deficient team, or were a year ago. If he can help change that, he's going to play a lot.
I believe it was Spags who mentioned that he might give them some flexibility to play inside, and we've seen it out here in training camp with their NASCAR package. What I mean by that is 3 pass rushers with a down lineman on the front 4. As of right now, it's been Karlaftis, Mike Dana, as well as Frank Clark alongside Chris Jones. But now you have another body, a proven pass rusher that you can slide in there as well.
I think something interesting to this conversation too, guys, is, at least looking at some of the Pro Football Focus stuff on Dunlap, is that he was a really sure tackler last year, and he was pretty good with run defense. So that's the thing that you kind of look at when there were some rumors about Robert Quinn coming to the Chiefs, potentially getting traded. We know Quinn for his sack total and really getting after the rusher, but I think, if we're looking at these stats and taking them at face value, at least, Dunlap at least has a point there that, hey, maybe he can be a contributor first and second down still, because he's helping out in other ways that are pass rush, and the Chiefs might be able to get sort of the full impact of that without him just being a situational player. So I don't think that this means he's going to play 90% of the snaps or whatever you want to say with that. Obviously, he is an older guy, but I think his point is he wants to be in there for first downs and second downs and third downs, and not, as Herbie talked about, just coming in like a Tom Hali, 4th, 3rd down situations. And I think he'll get the chance to do that in Kansas City.
Okay, a lot more to get to. Steve Spagnuolo, Skyy Moore, and Andrew Wiley also spoke to the media today. I want to touch on something from all of them, and we'll do that after we hear from First Federal Bank.
When I bought my first home, I was searching for listings and negotiating all on my own. Now I'm back in the housing market, and I could not imagine doing that again. But then I found First Federal Bank of Kansas City's expert loan advisors at ffbkc.com. They were kind, knowledgeable, and available 24/7. My loan advisor answered my questions and helped me feel confident all the way through closing. I trust First Federal Bank because they understand banking is personal. Apply today for a home loan at ffbkc.com/homes. First Federal Bank of Kansas City. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hey, this is Blair. There are several ways to access the Star Sports section. Let me tell you about a couple of them. There is Sports Pass. For $12.99 a month, you get unlimited digital access to all the Star Sports content, including beat writing, columns, features, pretty much everything we write. The deal renews monthly until you tell us to cancel. For $159.99 a year, you get everything the Star has to offer digitally, including sports and the e-edition. Go to kansascity.com and drop down to the bottom of the page where it says Start a Subscription for more information. Your support has never been more important. As always, thanks for reading and listening. Back on SportsBeat Live, talking Chiefs from training camp at Missouri Western with Jesse Newell and Herbie Teope, the Beat guys. Kendall says he doesn't think Carlos Dunlap will threaten become the league sack leader, but he'll be a stabilizing factor on the defense. I hope so for the Chiefs. Bradley says his length is intriguing. Prototype Spags D end. That's right. Just in size alone, he reminds me a little bit of Tano Passanio. Now, Tano didn't develop the way everybody for a second round pick did not develop the way that the Chiefs had hoped, but was a starter for 2 Super Bowl teams and certainly a good sized player for the Chiefs. Okay, hey, so Steve Spagnuolo spoke today, and it's funny. I think he must have tuned into our conversation yesterday about rookie players and draftees, because he addressed a lot of them in his the defensive draftees today. And Jesse, I know you ended up writing about that. Look, we established yesterday that we like what the draft class is doing, and just about everybody is thumbs up or arrow pointing up for a lot of them. But what did Spag say about the defensive players like Trent McDuffie and Brian Cook and George Karlaftis, et cetera?
Yeah, I think not only is he tuning into it, but the rest of us are tuning into it, because we're asking Spagnuolo about all these guys that are happening, or that are rookies that are in there trying to perform. But no, he addressed basically all of them today. Everybody except for Nazeeh Johnson, who we talked about yesterday, probably the one out of the group that is not immediately looking for an immediate contributor type role, at least as we've seen it so far. But talked about McDuffie, saying he's been outstanding so far. They mostly kept him in one position. Spagnuolo said that they're going to have to move him around to get him more experience in other places, but they kind of want to keep his mind free at one particular spot for now. So, we've seen him line up outside quite a bit. Brian Cook, we mentioned this yesterday. Brett Veach loved his intelligence, and Spagnuolo today talked about his intelligence, how he's picking up the scheme so much. So he's been the guy for them when they come into the dime package. He's been in there and allows them to do a lot of different things when it comes to the 3 safety look and 3 DB look, to rotate in a lot of different ways. So they seem to like him. And then Joshua Williams, who was kind of the star of camp, I think, last week for the Chiefs. He was the 4th-round pick. Now he's been supplanted for first-team reps, at least the last few days, by Jalen Watson. But they just say Joshua Williams is great with press. He's got that size, and that he's sort of taking everything in. Spagnuolo talked about the technique that they like to use, that he is taking every word of that and trying to do it exactly the way that the Chiefs want him to do. So they like his ability to learn and to try to do things that they teach. And then Spagnuolo kind of interesting comments on Jalen Watson, just saying he's trying to keep Joshua Williams motivated by putting those 2 guys together at the number 1 spots, but also said he was kind of a slow starter this camp. But he's emerged lately and had 2 really good practices in the last 2 days, including the indoor drills, where Spagnuolo said that he had 2 really good reps to start off of that practice. So that's fascinating to watch, and also fascinating to watch when we talk about these guys emerging. You also have to talk about the other guys that you wonder about at the end of this roster now, Lonnie Johnson or DeAndre Baker, those sorts of guys. So it'll be something to watch in the first preseason games for sure. And as these guys get more experience and have the lights turn on, whether they continue to perform the way they have so far, that's something to watch, especially when it comes to these rookies.
Heard nothing to dissuade me of from the points we were making in the conversation yesterday about just how impressed we were with some of the guys. I guess I'm glad to hear that Steve Spagnuolo confirmed our observations. Skyy Moore, also a subject at the podium today, and did I see this right? I had a couple of highlight plays today, receptions, and something of a like the Tyreek Hill end aroundish snap. And I think this is the second time we've heard from Skyy Moore during training camp. Herbie, did he has the game slowed down a little bit for him, do you think? Is he getting more comfortable here?
Well, I kind of asked him that very question. Where does he feel he is? Because he is making plays out here consistently. I don't think we can go a day without all of a sudden, well, that's Skyy Moore in there. Yeah, sure enough, that was Skyy Moore making a play down the field. He admitted, look, he said this is a complex offense. So, he's still learning it. But my biggest takeaway from that today was the fact that he sits behind Patrick Mahomes. When they're watching film, he's sitting behind Patrick Mahomes. And if he sees something and he has a question, he's in Mahomes' ear. And then, of course, because they're in a team meeting, Mahomes will whisper back to him, what he's seeing and what he should do and what he shouldn't do. Look, the guy is impressive. And it's funny that we're talking about Skyy Moore because in the media room, we were talking like, who are the stars of the camp? And, Skyy Moore's name came up because he's been that impressive out here. There was a question in there earlier. I saw something about someone was asking who's going to have more than 50% of the snaps, Skyy Moore or Pacheco. I'm going to say it's probably Skyy Moore.
I think so too. I want to address that Pacheco here in a second. But Brian asked about seeing Skyy Moore in the backfield today, almost Deebo Samuel like. You saw that, Jesse?
Yeah, they lined him up back there, and that's something to take from camp. They can't really hide anything from us as they're installing this sort of the offense they do. So yeah, there was one where it was interesting because McKinnon was out wide or in the slot, and then they moved Skyy Moore and motioned him back to be a running back and basically gave him a handoff, and he broke off for a big gain. Again, I say big gain. This was not really them going at each other. This was just the defense giving the offense a particular look and then them running through. They didn't have full pads on today, so it's not like that play wouldn't have gone for a touchdown. It had to go for a touchdown unless Skyy Moore tripped over his own 2 feet. But I think that this speaks to something to keep a watch on as preseason goes on and potentially the regular season is that, yes, Skyy Moore has been used. I don't know if you want to call it a Deebo Samuel type role, but Andy Reid's talked about, and this is going to be I'm sure this is going to be the nickname for him, right? Is it going to be Thigh Moore for him? Because he's talked about his legs, how big they are. They look like a running back. So potentially they might use him as sort of a gadget player running back. Meanwhile, having said that, I think we've also seen, and Herbie, you can correct me if I'm wrong because you've been at more camps, obviously, than I have, seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire split out a lot more and on a lot of routes. So that's something to pay attention to try to see how those guys work with their skill sets. When you have Tyreek Hill, maybe you don't have to throw it to your back as much. But, again, we've seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire split out a lot more. At the same time, we have seen Skyy Moore go back to the backfield and maybe use those thighs in a different way than he would as a receiver. So that's something to keep track of, something to watch as we move forward.
He was actually asked about that. I think our colleague Pete Sweeney from 610 Sports asked him, was he accustomed to that kind of stuff? And Skyy said, look, I'm used to this because I did this in college. So, the jet sweep type action, lining up in the backfield, that's something that he's accustomed to. And Andy Reid, when Andy Reid knows his players have a certain skill set, and they're good at it, he'll design plays to highlight that.
The other player that we heard from today was Andrew Wiley, right tackle. And so when I heard he was coming to the podium, I just did a quick little search of him and realized, I guess it must be probably obvious to some, but I didn't realize he's the most experienced offensive lineman for the Chiefs, right? Their offensive, Tooney has played longer and that sort of thing. But in terms of tenure with the Chiefs, nobody has been here longer than Andrew Wiley. More starts, more games in the Chiefs uniform, and how, Herbie, is that role? Is that significance to Wiley, and how can he use that?
Well, first off, the experience. You can never knock the experience factor when you talk about this offense. So when you have all these young guys, and he mentioned last year he and Mike Remmers were like the oldest guys in that offensive line room, and it was critical because you had all these new guys coming in, including 3 rookies that actually began the season as starters. I like the fact that he brings the versatility as well. He can play guard and play tackle, but this year he tended to focus more on tackle because, as he kept saying, it was implied that if he returned, he would be given that shot at right tackle. So, experience matters, especially in an Andy Reid scheme.
And did I hear this correctly? Because I think some of the audio cut off for me that the first game he started at tackle was the Super Bowl loss to Tampa Bay, and he said he was basically a guard playing tackle that game. That's how sort of fish out of water he seemed for that game. And of course that's the famous game where Patrick Mahomes scrambled for 500 yards or something. So, but look, when we talk about or think about the Chiefs offensive line, and then you consider, Andrew Wiley as a starter, you don't think of the line being, well, they have to start Andrew Wiley. This must be a substandard offensive line. I don't think that way. There was a time when Andrew Wiley was starting a tackle, and I thought, boy, there's no Fisher, and they're having to plug a hole here. But I think Andrew Wiley is has earned his keep and can be a pretty effective right tackle.
7 starts last year, so you're absolutely correct. This isn't an experiment anymore like it was in the Super Bowl. This is his position. When you have 7 starts and you have the offseason to focus on playing tackle, he's making that transition.
All right, you guys. So Kendall asks again about Isaiah Pacheco and with his speed, and let's kind of leave on this thought. I think we've established the running back room is getting crowded. It's not getting crowded; it's been crowded, and you can look at 5 guys, right, who are part of the competition, and there's not enough room on the roster for that many running backs. So, is there a possibility that a running back could be traded in camp? Brett Veach has made trades before. Would that be a possible solution to thin out the crowd at running back?
Real quick, can confirm that right here, bugs do crawl down my back. That was what was happening earlier. So this guy, I'm going to let him go free, but that is part of the hazard pay I'm going to get from the Star for being outside and showing you beautiful scenery. The beetle crawling down my back as I'm trying to analyze the Kansas City Chiefs. It could, Blair, the Pacheco thing is interesting because every national person who seems to come through camp, one of their main notes is Isaiah Pacheco is really wowing the Chiefs. And usually that comes from people that are sort of at the top of the organization. If these guys come in here, they get usually to talk with those people. And so that's coming from a very good place. The thing with Pacheco is you kind of got to figure out where he's at in this spectrum because I think the Kareem Hunt comparison did come from Albert Breer, who's with the Monday Morning Quarterback. And that was the top of his 5 notes from Chiefs camp, I believe. And he said that Chiefs, see some similarities to Kareem Hunt with him. Probably a little bit early for that. Of course, Pacheco made a great catch in camp today. I know the video is out there on that. So the more that he shows hands, the more versatile he potentially could be. I think, I was talking earlier today on radio, and the thing about him is who he kind of reminds you of physically is Nile Davis, where like a big guy who returned kicks, who had really blazing speed. The problem with Nile Davis was he didn't really have enough wiggle in his game. You know what I mean? And never really made it as running back, was just fine as a kick returner. So that's a question with Pacheco he'll still have to answer. And it's still early in camp, but they are really high on him. And again, we remember Brett Veach talking about this in the running back class, even before the draft happened. He said he thought there was going to be a 1,000-yard rusher either in the 7th round or undrafted. It got to that point in the draft. He saw Pacheco still there, liked him, took him, and the Chiefs have been really impressed with him so far. So in terms of trades, you would think Ronald Jones would be the most likely candidate. The Chiefs had a guy like Carlos Hyde not too long ago who they were able, for a while, you thought he was going to be in the rotation, and then they traded him away. So maybe something like that could happen, but depends on if the Chiefs want to keep 4 running backs or 3 running backs. And we've seen a lot of Ronald Jones. I called him my player of the camp day yesterday, where in red zone situations and with pads on, he looks a lot better as a one-cut-and-go guy. So we'll see how this plays out. And as I wrote about and talked about in this video previously, Brett Veach was most interested when we talked to him to see how this running back battle would turn out. So I think this is something that we're still a few days away from knowing or having more clarity on the situation, just because I think everybody in this building right here in front of me is still wondering how this thing is going to shake out.
All right, and we'll pick up the conversation on Saturday because the Chiefs don't practice Friday. So Saturday, Sunday, full of Chiefs training camp, and I won't be here, but Herbie Teope will sit in the pilot's seat and guide Jesse Newell and other guests through the show.
From Starbucks. I will do it from Starbucks.
That's great. As he is doing right now, as a matter of fact. All right, for Jesse on the quad and Herbie in the union, and Monty Davis spinning the dials, doing a great job producing. And for First Federal Bank, their website is ffbkc.com. I'm Blair Kirkhoff. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon. That'll do it for today and this week. Thanks to our SportsBeat KC production staff of Randy Mason, Monty Davis, Jeff Rosen, and Chris Fickett. Shout out to our sponsor, First Federal Bank. Their website is ffbkc.com. And a tip of the cap to beat writers Jesse Newell and Herbie Teope for sharing their insights on the Chiefs. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with another SportsBeat KC.